Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I am excited to be with Scott Worley, the owner of the Patio Kitchen Co. in St. Louis. Welcome to Builder Stories.
Hey, thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, so why don't you give us a little bit about your background? How'd you get into construction? How'd you start this company? Kind of just a little bit about who you are, Scott.
Well, I think in the very beginning, I started out like most guys have when they got in construction. Got out of high school, started working for a guy. And what took us to business ownership is worked for him throughout college. After college, he offered to be business partners. So I was cutting grass. He had this lawn care business and asked me to launch and run the hardscape landscape construction side of the company. And that's how we got into it.
Yeah. So what motivated you to want to start your own company?
Boy, that's a good question. I think once I got a taste of it, and, there was a lot that I learned from being business partners with someone who had some seasonality. Once we got into it, I thought, man, this is really feeling like a good fit. This is really something I wanted to do with my life. And so it just kind of went from there.
Nice. And have you always, it sounds like kind of you really started off sort of in the outdoor space. I mean, has that always just kind of been your passion? I mean, what do you guys focus on today? What's that core, that core service that you try to focus on?
Yeah, it would be the outdoor living space. So it's basically outdoor living, landscape construction, which would be things like patios, pavilions, pools, outdoor kitchens. It's kind of in our name.
Yeah.
And pavilion, anything that's like an outdoor related space, fireplaces, that sort of thing. That's really where we do well.
Awesome. So tell us, kind of what's your company look like? Is it just you right now running the business? And do you have workers? Do you use subcontractors? How are you managing everything?
Yeah, we're actually in a pretty exciting phase, but it's been quite a journey. We went into business about 2010, and we did business for 10 years. And at the end of 2019, we actually decided to close the business. And I went to go on and be a designer for a couple of years at some of the larger landscape architecture and build firms here in town. And then the Patio Kitchen Co. came along when we decided to go back into business and basically relaunch the company. And so that happened last year. And so who we are today is we focus on design, communication with the client, managing the projects, and then we hire the tradesmen, the experts who are the best at doing the work to build the projects that we design. And so that's who we are today.
Yeah, that's great. So what's your day-to-day look like? What do you focus on, every single day? Kind of what are the primary responsibilities? I mean, I assume you're kind of wearing all the hats, but what's a day look like for Scott running this business by himself here?
Yeah. You say wear a lot of hats, but man, I've really got to be thankful for the people that we're getting to partner with that are working on these projects. I mean, I know that right now in this relaunch stage, right now it's me, and we've got people that are helping us with our accounting. We got people helping us with answering the phones. People who are constructing the projects and they're working like they're the foreman for us. They're filling out the daily logs and job tread. And it definitely does not feel like I'm alone in this.
That's awesome. I'm a big proponent of, what my CEO likes to call building your power team, which can really be, just partners that can help you. And again, so many business owners, entrepreneurs that they feel like they're in this alone. And, whether you have employees or partners or whatever it is, it's important that you make sure that all of the different needs, of the business are getting serviced one way or another. And so, being able to have those right partners, I know is a tremendous benefit, to you, to your business, to being able to make sure that you're able to fulfill, all of the services and everything that you're selling to your customers. So, that's great.
It's been just kind of a game-changing experience in the last couple of years. You're talking about wearing all the hats. Like, man, that's what the early days are like when you are 21 years old.
Yeah.
and you gift yourself for your 21st birthday to go into business, that's you do everything. You don't know anything and you do everything, which is kind of
Yep.
odd. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's and it definitely, I see a lot of people who they end up getting burned out because of that, and so that's where
mhm,
it's like, man, at some point, obviously, to get a business up and off the ground from scratch, like, yeah, I mean, you gotta, you're overdrive, you're doing everything, but again, there's a lot of creative ways that
mhm,
business owners can do exactly what you're doing, which is, kind of partnering with others that can help, make sure that, you're able to deliver, and get everything done. I'm curious, are there any kind of like key, areas, that you've partnered with that you feel like, you just the most important ones, the ones that, if you were to give others advice, like, start here, what would those be?
start here. So in college, we had a professor, and he would use this phrase, ready, fire, aim. And, that's kind of stuck with me. I also am a firm believer that an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of cure. So, like, try to figure as much out as you can. But at some point, like, you got to make the moves. At some point, something has to happen. And you have to make peace with the fact that there's just going to be some things that aren't 100% like sorted. And so, it's a lot easier, I feel like, when you're young. Like, when you're young and dumb, it's just like, "Yeah, let's go and do it. Let's,"
Yeah.
and I think that's probably been, like, the other side of the coin compared to this time around. I think when we read this relaunch, there's some seasonality. I was by myself back then. Now we've got a family and a kid, and, like, there's just more kind of on the line. And so that's definitely, shaped the experience of what it was like to launch a business 14
Yeah.
years ago versus now. So,
Yeah. So do you, I mean, like, do you still set like goals for yourself, goals for the business every year? Like, how do you go about kind of planning out, what's 2024 going to look like for you? And what are your key initiatives?
yeah, 2024 is, it's going to be in a pretty exciting year. This past year was kind of like this proof of concept, like, this works. And we were building and forging new relationships with partners that we're going to be building the work. And this next coming year is going to be like, this is going to be the building year in the S curve, where we're really going to start getting some traction, and we're going to start building some really cool projects. And it's going to set us up for, in 2025, start onboarding people and staff, like landscape architects and project managers, getting a location. Those are all kinds of the kinds of things that we have on our roadmap that we're hoping to happen from the work that we do this year. So, that's a cool thing. We plan for that. But I
Yeah.
think what we really try to focus on is what is that roadmap? How does that affect the experience and the service that we're delivering to our customers? Because if we don't start there, that roadmap really isn't worth anything.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And again, going into things with a plan, and being able to be prepared, and then as you're building the business, like being able to kind of compare back to, well, how are we performing against our plan? What's working, what's not working. Like, it's
Yeah.
it is it's a continual effort, it's a continual improvement, and trying to always make sure that you're growing, building the business, and just kind of doing it as you go. Is again, experience is king here. You're not ever going to have that silver bullet, just, hey, this is exactly how we should do it. No one can ever
Oh,
predict the future as much as
yeah.
you wish.
Oh, yeah. And people, we love the silver bullet, right? We're just like, give me the thing and I'll
Yeah.
do it, right? And I think, it's like one of the earliest lessons for me was just, sometimes you've got to do the interior work, and sometimes it needs to take some time just to get in and do it. And, and that'll, that silver bullet can feel elusive sometimes, So,
Yeah. I mean, one thing that, again, just kind of watching you over the last, year, and how you've really adopted job tread. Like, I've been just completely blown away by, how, you've gone to set everything up, and you've taken the time to really, be methodical about building out your catalog and your templates, and, leveraging the formulas. I mean, the fact, like, you even if for those of you out there, if you hadn't seen Job Tread Unplugged on YouTube, Scott has created his own YouTube channel, walking people through tips and tricks. And so, like, maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I mean, the fact that like, you're not only like, really, preparing yourself to have a business that can scale and to maximize the usage, but like the fact that you're sharing this with the rest of the community. I mean, like, man, that's awesome, Scott. Like, tell us, like, what's the thinking behind this? Like, what motivated you to first kind of go and, implement, some technology and, set up these processes, and then two, to share it with the world.
Oh, thank you. I have man, the perspective that I've gotten to have over the last few years, going from kind of my little company to seeing what it was like to work at the $6 and $8 million landscape companies. I got to see, just how the big guys actually did things. And it taught me to place a lot of value on the tools that we're using to do our job. And so very early on, I mean, we've been looking for a software like JobTread for a while. Place a lot of value on having a program, and it's worth it. I mean, we went, and I feel like every winter for the last 7 years, I've spent Googling CRMs for construction, and it's like everyone has 80% of the same things, but there's that 20% that they all differ, and they're all missing kind of like one key component. And when we came across JobTread, and I get it, like I'm on the podcast, I'm not getting paid for this, right? So, but it was like, oh, they actually had all the right important foundational pieces that you would think a construction management software program would have. And so it was a no-brainer to front the expense for it. And so we dove in head first right away. And then when the functions came out, or the formulas, like, man, that's just, I'm a nerd about this stuff. Like, I love, it's kind of, I like to break it out at parties, actually. I'm like, let me show you this spreadsheet I made that usually helps liven up parties. So, but yeah, I love
my language, Scott.
Right. Hey, I don't know if you do this. I saw this on Facebook the other day. There's actually the competitive Microsoft Excel. Like that's an esport or something where there's competitive Microsoft Excel. So,
Yeah, I saw that competition. The guy, like how fast you could do all sorts of crazy things. Yeah, is that like?
Oh yeah. And apparently there's some drama, like the LeBron James of Microsoft Excel just recently got dethroned or something. So, there's some hot stuff going down in the Microsoft Excel world.
It's funny. So my very first job out of college, I went and I worked at an investment bank. And pretty much like the first thing that I did there was I read the Excel Bible, which is like this like massive like book of just like every single thing you can do. And then like we joked that said they basically take away your mouse, and nobody actually took away my mouse, but like the goal is to not have to use the mouse at all. It's all about the hotkeys and the shortcuts, and being able to just like do it as fast as possible on the keyboard. So I'd say that's where I I got my passion and love for Excel as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's pretty.
Little bit dense of a book. I don't necessarily recommend it to most people, though.
Not a page turner, huh?
No. You got to really be really a little bit geeky to get excited by that stuff.
Sounds like a commitment. Like you really got to push through it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, why don't again, maybe tell us, like, I mean, how have like been able to leverage formulas? I mean, how is that impacting things for you? Like, what is is that speeding up your estimating? Is that making things more accurate? Like, where have you seen the biggest impacts?
Absolutely. I think the biggest impact is how these formulas are helping us deliver the experience to the customer, specifically we're in the estimating phase. So we do a design cycle where basically we go through some draft reviews, we put budgetary numbers, and we kind of curate the design alongside the estimate. And then there's usually this stage where we're on the 10-yard line and we're making final decisions about the proposal. And so we've got a design, we're sitting at the table with a design, a proposal, and the formulas are enabling us to deliver flexibility and speed to the customer at this key moment where the customer can ask, well, what if we were to add the fireplace? What if we phase out the pavilion, built the patio, and then we added the pavilion in the future? What would that look like? We no longer have to say, that's great, we'll get back to you in a couple of days with an updated proposal. We've got it figured out, and because we've been using formulas to put this number together, we can, here, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 1 second, and we can make a few adjustments knowing that the formulas are doing the heavy lifting for us, and we can provide them those numbers, which we think provides a nice experience to the customer when you kind of feel like, hey, just tell me the number, I'm ready to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, and again, a lot of times I think, there's situations out there where, the homeowners can get sort of a bad, taste or feel from the contractor when, again, they come out, they spend all this time with them, and then, contractor's like, all right, we'll get back to you. And then they never follow up. You find
Mhm.
yourself having to follow up. I mean, I'm sure everybody out there has had their own experience with that, with that guy who, again, like it's that professionalness, it's the responsiveness. Like that's what makes people want to buy, and when
Yeah.
you can be there and you can show them like, look, I'm not just making things up. Like this is just how our process works. This is how our system works. Like we know our numbers. I think it
Yes.
breeds so much confidence to the homeowner that they're not just, having some guy kind of make up some things and trying to price gouge them. Like, it's like, okay, this company really understands what they're doing. And I think that comes across like just really helps people close those deals, and really shortens that sales cycle.
Absolutely. And, it's 2024. The computers have been around for a while. It almost feels like this is a no-brainer. Like, why is it in other industries? This is an easier thing to calculate. It should be that way for us as well. And it's becoming, I find, like the bigger differentiator between when you're looking for a contractor to build your project and to work with. And it's great. There's so much education. There's so much on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube about how to build this stuff. And so your quality of craftsmanship, which is a big deal, and there are differences. There's also a lot of companies that in the end are doing good work. There's a lot of good work getting done by a lot of companies. And so if you want to stand out, it's like what you're really getting when you're hiring a contractor is a term working relationship. And so the end result isn't the only thing that is the factor. It's what is it going to be? How responsive are they going to be to emails? What's their capacity to answer the phone when I have questions or to pay attention to details? And so we're finding that a program and software like JobTread with a client portal, not only a client portal, but a vendor portal where our subcontract, it helps us help our partners be organized. Like all of those central components deliver a good experience of what is it like to even work with these contractors.
Yeah.
And that differentiator is really making a difference.
Yeah. I mean, before we go on to that, I mean, like I just something that you said really stuck out. I mean, it's this day and age, like everybody can come up with photos that may or may not even be their work. Who knows? I mean, Photoshop. Yeah, I don't know how much you can trust with photos anymore,
Yeah.
but like the fact that like this is that first experience for the homeowner. Like you can tell them you're going to build them an awesome job. They can see photos. I think though a lot of the time it's just an assumption that the quality will be great, and now it's all about picking the right contractor. And so like it's that first experience working with them, that's like really it sets the tone for the
Right.
whole relationship thereon. And it's like if you don't provide that great initial impression, initial, going through that, those designs and that, that estimating process, like man, like people buy from people they like more so than the price or any like even the schedule. Like it's about choosing somebody that they want to embark on this journey with. And so, I just to everybody out there, like again, like you got to make sure you are always putting your best foot forward, right at the beginning to impress the customer and help them like want to work with you. That is more important than the price or anything else. I've seen people who go and they, the homeowner will choose somebody who's booking 6 months out because they want to work with that person versus the guy who's got a cheaper price who can get it in there today. A lot of people really value, that relationship and the quality that they'll be able to do. So it's
Yeah.
something to take into account. Like, are you trying to be, the low cost provider, or are you trying to be, the
Mhm.
premium, going to provide the best service and be there for that homeowner, if something does go wrong or later down the road or whatever it may be. Like, I want to encourage contractors to be the best that they can be and to build great businesses. So, I think again, having the right tools in place and really having just the right mindset as you approach it is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's when I'm listening to you talk about this, what I'm also hearing is you describe your identity as like your company's identity. And so how you decide to operate creates your company's identity. And you get some say in that. And, you're talking about like doing a good quality job and delivering a good experience. and charging what you need to be able to do that. Like that's all part of that equation.
Yeah. So, you brought up the, let's talk about kind of the vendor portal, just that, so you're using subcontractors. So, a lot of people, I hear both sides of this debate. Should I have employees? Should I use subs? How do I, how do I find these people? How do I make sure they're good quality? A lot of people really worry that if they're subbing it out, that they're not going to care. They're not going to do a good job. They can't control the quality. So what, kind of where's your head around all of this, and how have you kind of mitigated, some of those potential concerns?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest difference, because I've heard both sides of this conversation. It just kind of feels like pick your burden, the reason we've structured the way that we are structured now is there's one key difference, and that is that paying a crew for the job does a better job of connecting compensation to value delivered. If you're sending people out that are working by the hour and they make mistakes, you're going to send them or someone else by the hour. And there's some pros and cons with that. If it's a little easier to schedule when the work is in-house. So there's, like I said, pick your burden, there's some pros and cons. When someone is showing up to your house to do the work and they're getting paid for the job, the work that they're doing, that is it naturally incentivizes accuracy and timeliness, which are two like pillars of customer experience. If you're not getting those two right, then, if you can get those two right, all you've done is not upset the customer, So, so what we find is that when we're sending out the crew, they're getting it, they're doing a good job of discerning, does this task need to be done a little slower and more carefully? And they're giving that task some more attention. And then when it comes to another task, like spreading mulch, it's like, you don't need to hand place the mulch, right? like toss it and level it with a rake and, stick and move with the mulch, right? And so it delivers both like the quality of install at the points where quality is going to be critical, like the first row of a retaining wall. And it's also producing the efficiency that your house isn't torn up and open for just an unreasonable amount of time.
Yeah. No, you directly hit on one of the experiences that I had when I first took over this construction company that I was running. We were selling our jobs, with the fixed price, but then we were paying our subs. We were paying them, by the day. So, time and material, like it was a variable cost, even though we sold it at a fixed price. And so like we were just struggling to hit our target profit margin because again, like I learned the hard way that with the guys, like they were incentivized to drag this on. They were getting paid no matter how much they were doing, the quality of it. If we had to send them back out, they're getting paid more. They were going and, just hanging out at Home Depot. Like I uncovered so many challenges with this. And this is when we switched to, basically using the bid request system and, making them bid on the job and give me a fixed price that I could then turn around, add my margin on top, sell it. And then, if we win the job, I just, convert that bid request straight to a work order, send them out there. I think not only did we increase, the accuracy of our budgeting, knowing that we had a fixed cost and we could accurately now price, with that, the quality and the speed at which those guys got the work done, it was just like, it was such a transformation because, if they told me it was going to take them 5 days and they were going to charge me, $10,000, great. I put that into my proposal. I get it sold, and then if they do it in 3 days, awesome. More power to you. You get to move on to the next job. You're still getting paid that same amount. Yep. Now, if it takes you 7 days, that's on you. Barring some sort of an unforeseen circumstance or change orders or whatever. If you just didn't get it done right or dragged it out or whatever, again, I have still locked in my cost, and so that was just a huge transformation for us to be able to do that. And interesting enough, like. The subs, they ended up knowing that, like, hey, I could go send this bid to, and request, a bid from multiple guys. So keep it competitive. Make sure, if you want me to select you, you can't just come in here and throw out some ridiculous number. They really became more thoughtful because they understood that if they didn't get this estimated right, then they were going to be left, having to do extra work longer than they had anticipated. And ultimately that's going to cost them more. So again, like the quality, the speed, everything just went up immediately. And
Yep.
so it was, it was a good move for us. I'm a big proponent of, using subcontractors. I think again, especially earlier on,
Mhm.
the burden of having to hire employees when you don't have, a steady, stable, consistent, income, as you grow your business and it becomes, gets farther along, sure, like I 100%, I think it makes sense to, look at bringing in, project managers and, back office and, estimators. Like you can start building out your team as you can afford it. But a great way to sort of, mitigate those risks is with subs.
Mhm. And, when I was working at these other firms, if you want the best tradesmen, like you want the best people working on site with the most experience, it usually isn't an hourly wage. It's usually some combination of like bonuses and incentives
Yeah.
that are ended up connecting to, because if you want the best people, like they've got to be compensated they got to be rewarded for doing a good job on time. And so, um, yeah, the end result is that the guys who are doing the work, when with our model, they are making the most money than if they were to work for someone else. And that's a big deal because
Yeah.
there's nothing scarier than having a contractor work at your house who runs out of money. Like
Yeah.
that's the scariest situation you could be in. And so
100%.
that's when shortcuts happen. Like good
So,
people, bad decisions when that
so how do
happens.
you, keep the subs, motivated and dedicated to you, or, or maybe they're not 100% dedicated, but like, how do you go about trying to make sure you're retaining the best guys to be available for you?
Well, I think the first step is that we don't pick the low bid. So, and we're not looking to treat our partners like, like pieces on a chessboard, like they're not, we understand that there is a benefit, just like there's a benefit to using good software and paying for it. There's a benefit to having a cohesion with the partners that are building the projects. And so it is worth it to us to invest in their company so that they have the resources to do a good job. And in return, they don't feel like, at least this is my hope. My hope is that they are benefiting from their partnership with us. And if that's happening, if we're giving them what they need to do the job well and communicating the design as a set of intentions, then our hope is that that's why they're sticking with us.
Yeah. So how are you finding your guys?
That's a good question. This is my 18th year in the industry, and a lot of the connections that I've made have come through, the people that I've known over the years.
Yeah.
So these aren't new relationships. They're people that we have some seasonality, that I personally have some seasonality with. And so that's definitely helped. And I feel very thankful that that's one of the cards that I happen to have. There's cards I don't have. That was one of the cards that I did have. And I feel thankful for that.
Do you have like any sort of, can you think of a situation or story where, like, again, maybe one of these seasoned guys that you've worked with, though, like, screwed up something, or like, and how do how do you handle, when challenges come up, with those guys where, you've got a long relationship, obviously they screwed up big, how do you address that?
So I'll start with empathy plus natural consequences. And what that looks like is what I feel like I owe to them. And then also I owe to myself is to be able to shoot them straight. So if something isn't done well, then we're going to have a conversation about it and we're going to own our decisions. We are on our side, going to own our decisions. And we're looking for that in our partners as well. Because I think that if you're going to do any kind of problem solving, if you're looking for a solution or how to move forward, it begins with listening and understanding what the issue is, and then giving everybody the benefit of the doubt that, like, if there was a sub and they made some bad choices and it messed some things up, chances are they did those and made those decisions for a reason. So if we start by asking, so what were we thinking? Like, what was your intention when you made these choices? Because they didn't just do mindless things, right? And so I think starting there as a starting point really helps breed collaboration instead of me just seeing something from the outside and making assumptions about why something was messed up. and then launching into being frustrated with them. I don't think that really gets us anywhere. And so I think approaching it with empathy, I said empathy plus natural consequences. There may be times in the future where if it's a recurring or there's an issue that we might have to make the decision to not use them. And if that happens, that'll be more of like a natural consequence of, well, these things weren't working out. And so it gives us and we can also give them the ability to make adjustments and improve and to work with them again in the future. So it really kind of depends on what happened, So, but I think starting with that's going to be like, that's how we're going to initiate a beneficial, like that's going to be a good way to approach resolutions.
So, I know that you had commented previously on, you saw that we were using Clifton Strengths. It's an assessment kind of, really helps you understand people's strengths, skills. Like, have you ever used that with any of your subs, or kind of what's your experience with using, kind of those types of tools to help you find, great people?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am a big fan. I read his book, First Break All the Rules, and that came across my table as like the HR Bible for Facebook. Like Disney and Netflix uses it, and the Clifton Strength Finders, you guys. And we implemented a lot of the things in that book back in 2017 and 2018. And at that point in time, what our company looked like is we had employees, I had a project manager, a couple of part-time salespeople, 2 or 3 crews, bobcats, equipment, trucks, shop. Like we kind of, then all of our work was in-house at that point. And so, man, especially now that I've had the experience of working at another company, it is hard not to feel like every employee is on a ladder somewhere, like on this singular ladder. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest takeaway that I got from that book was to learn how to speak the language of outcomes, speak the language of intent, and to, instead of like try to map out every step of a person's role, communicate that role as a set of intentions and goals and outcomes, and then let people make decisions on how to produce those outcomes. And then when employees feel like they're on a ladder, we actually took that ladder and we broke it, and then we staggered it. And so one of my closest friends was working for me at the time. He was a project manager for me, and it wasn't working out. This is a great situation. Like, what do you do when like you've got to close? Because you're a small business, so like sometimes you hire your friends, and he's so skilled. Like he was a carpenter before he came working for me. So talented, really good at installing the work. And then the natural thought is, you're really good at doing the work. I hire more guys. Now you're going to manage these other people to do the work. And, thinking that being good at the thing makes you a good manager of the thing. That's what I had to unlearn at that point in time. That's what I learned from those Clifton Strength Finders. Yeah. And I actually took him out of the project manager role, hired someone else to be the project manager, which he saw as this guy who doesn't know as much as I do is now my boss. But because we broke the ladder and we staggered it, he was actually making more money than the manager that was managing him, because the manager was an entry level. Like he was new for us and new to managing. And so we didn't really, that's where he was on the ladder. But my friend was like the top level of it in his role. And so it's kind of like how band managers don't make as much as the lead singer, And so, so when that happened, I realized that it did a better job of distributing respect and a better job of connecting how value delivered, like compensation was to value delivered. And so, man, that was like, it flipped my business upside down and really made some significant changes for us.
Yeah. I would say the number one thing I've learned, now this is, my third company, it's so important that you build the right team, get the right people on the bus, sometimes the wrong people off the bus, and then like you learn how to work together to drive that bus and to drive your mission and vision forward. And like just having that in-depth understanding of everyone's strengths, their weaknesses, like it immediately helps you better appreciate, each person and know, who they are beyond just that surface level. Like you can just build such a more, cohesive team and working relationship with everybody by going through these types of exercises. And, a lot of times I know people are kind of like, oh, I don't want to go and sit down and, do all this. And that's a waste of time. And it's like, no, like you're not only going to learn a tremendous amount about yourself, but you're going to learn about everybody else. And the outcome is going to be such a stronger team of people together that, I can't encourage people enough to like take that time to, to invest in that and to do that, because, it really does make a big impact.
Yeah. It also helps give like a better understanding of how to make hiring and firing decisions.
Yeah.
And so in the early days, and I saw this, it almost feels ubiquitous. It almost feels like everybody does this when people talk about fit or culture. The way that's actually practiced is, does your boss like you or not? Do they think you're cool or not? And if they do, you get away with stuff. And if they don't, then you don't, and it just feels like this cloudy, unspecific, like framework where you're just coming to work hoping that you're not getting fired today because your boss had a bad day. Yeah. And so after reading that book, it actually gave us a framework that when we were making hiring decisions, we experienced a much higher success rate, that the people we chose were experiencing much more success. And it wasn't really about like, were you funny in the interview? Like, did we laugh? Were we getting chummy? Like it was less about that. It was more like, oh, there's actually a roadmap on how to make decisions about who to bring on board. And when someone isn't working out and you've got to take them off the team, you also had a roadmap for how to set them up for success. So some of the guys that I had to let go in the past, I actually helped them get jobs at other companies that I felt like were a better fit. And I'd come across them years later and they'd say, hey man, thank you. They're like thanking me for it not working out, And so, which is like, that's, it's just life, I guess.
Yeah. Man, and look, there's always the possibility that if they go and they can, develop their skill sets, get that experience, like, that there's, I always like to make sure that you leave the door open for who knows what could happen in the future. There have been people that come back and now they're an all-star, and like they have that much more appreciation for, you having to kind of give them that tough love. But it again, I believe that everybody, if they desire to, and they, and they commit to growing and improving, like, again, like whether you have the education, whether you have the experience, whether you have, whatever it is, like a desire and a passion to do better and to grow and develop, with time, you can, so to the extent that, it can be hard to, have to part ways, but, doing it in a way that's as positive as possible, that does set them up for hopefully future success is always, I think, a, great thing for business owners to think about.
Yep. And then giving them honest feedback instead of leaning on like this kind of scapegoat kind of excuse, like that really isn't helpful for anybody, but it's kind of like being able to give them honest feedback about the experience of hiring them. It's like this gift that you're giving them that, can help them actually improve, which is the same gift that a customer could give us if we deliver a bad experience. Yeah. We hope that customers give us honest feedback because that's how we're going to improve.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Scott, how do you, when you think about success, how do you define success for yourself? Like how do you know if you were successful at something? Like what is your sort of thinking around what does it mean to be successful?
Ooh, man, this is another great question. And I'm excited to share two versions of success, if that's cool with you.
Yeah.
There's like the naive young version, success is I made sales and I hired people and I did projects that are this big. And, success was I own a business, which is like a really cool thing to say when you're 20. Yeah. And so in your 20s, I feel like where I'm at now, success is, I define it very differently. It's like waking up happy. It's detaching my identity from the business identity so that while I'm at work, I can have my work life. But then when I come home, I can have a home life and I can have a life with and hang out with friends. And that success looks a lot more like having a healthy work environment where I can be engaged, where I can feel safe owning my decisions, where I can feel respected, and where we get to solve problems with other people that are like-minded and interested in solving the same kinds of problems. And there's like something that's energizing about that, but then also feeling like the success of the business doesn't depend on just like me, like personally. You know what I mean? Like, am I describing that distinction well?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I mean, again, it's very important that people do, learn to think about the holistic picture. Life is not just, doing one thing or, another thing. You got to have, it's multifaceted. And so, being able to appreciate, the things that you're doing well and being able to recognize, I'm doing great here. Now I need to go home. I need to focus on my family, my kids, spend that time, and that's something that I struggle with, like being able to, I'm just constantly thinking and I can't help it, and my wife reminds me I need to work on it. And I got a coach and I'm trying to work on it, but it is.
Oh, doubt thread or what?
Yeah. So, I think that's a great way to, to think about it. I'm curious now, how do you think about, failure and, what, what does failure mean to you?
There was a pivotal point, and that was at the end of 2019 when we made the decision to close the business. And the process that led to that was essentially the interior work of separating my identity from the company's identity. Previously, in the early days, I had this almost like codependent relationship with my company. And, codependency is basically you're dependent on someone else to regulate your emotions. And so when the business was happy, I was happy. When the business was sad, I was sad. And so that was a very unhealthy place. And I would describe it almost like I was in this, this might sound abrasive, but it was almost like I was in this abusive relationship with my company, like broken promises, the next job will be profitable. I told myself the things that all the successful people were saying. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. And you got to have moxie and you can't ever give up. And all of those cliches built this self-narrative that if the business closes, then I'm a failure. And so the interior work that I did to separate my identity from the company's identity that led ultimately to the business closing was understanding that failure is just iteration. Things can happen. You can have wins and you can have losses, but we show up to play the game. Like we're here to run the race. And the prize isn't necessarily, this is a great quote from, there's this like long distance runner that said this, it's not my quote. He said, the prize isn't the gold medal. It's the person you became to hold that medal. And so my perspective of failure is that it may happen and we can take it in stride and we can own those failures and we can choose to perceive them as we want to perceive them. When we close the business, I had a lot of friends and family that weren't sure how to like respond. They're like, I was like happy. I was like, man, I'm ready for this new chapter. I'm getting ready to go design these. I was used to doing these $10,000 and $15,000 jobs, and I got to go off and design these $100,000, $500,000 jobs and be a part of something a world I didn't really know existed. So for me, it was an exciting change.
Yeah.
But people tend to think that just because it ends, it failed. And so, that was kind of my experience where we basically, we had a misalignment relationship with failure.
Yeah.
And getting that realigned and understanding that I can have a failure, but that doesn't mean I am a failure. That distinction.
I see so many people that fear of failure causes them to not try. causes them, to just not take that first step to get off the block to try to, start a business, or try to, take on a new challenge, or try to, kind of just do something that, it's this fear of failure. And, again, I think it's all about that mindset, about how you perceive that, like for me, like I would rather our people take a chance and fail, or take a chance and make a mistake, or, just whatever. I would rather people try to do something that, again, may not work. And as long as they learn from that, as long as you can take the time to reflect and understand what happened, why did that not work out? Make sure you don't make the same mistake twice. I'm a big believer in, like, it's okay. I'd rather you try and make a mistake than to not try at all. But, like, if you keep making the same mistake over and over, I mean, that's like just, I mean, it's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. It's on you to make sure that you understand what happened and just improve and grow.
7th time's the charm, right?
Some things do take a couple tries, but, I mean, the point is, though, it's like, you can't be scared of failure. See it as an opportunity for growth and development and to do better. And, again, I think that's ultimately, like, as business owners, like, we're risk takers. We're, have to be courageous, have to, like, just know that, like, whatever comes your way, you're going to just have to deal with it. And you fight the best fight that you can. At the end of the day, you can get beat up pretty bad, but, like, just keep standing up, keep getting up, keep going at it. Every day is a new day. Some days when it's just like, I'm feeling so overwhelmed and just like, I don't know what to do. Like, just go to sleep and just wake up, and you get a fresh start every single day. That's the beauty of taking some time, taking a little break, rest, wake up, try it again. I think it's a great lesson for all business owners to understand, is that just nothing's going to be perfect, and you just got to keep going.
Yep. Every storm runs out of rain.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. That's a big
anyway. I really appreciate, you kind of sharing just, all of this insight and kind of your thinking around this. I mean, as I said earlier, I've been super impressed to see how, you've been approaching, building your business. You're doing an awesome job. I'm curious, just kind of, in wrapping up here, I mean, like, do you have any advice that you would share, with other people, just what you wish you would have known, at the beginning of kind of, this journey that you've been on, that, may help them be able to, get off the block and just kind of, get going, give it a try. Like, don't be scared of failure. Like, what advice, do you think you could share with others?
And I think probably the most helpful thing that's helped me throughout my career has been understanding how, doing the interior work to understand what I'm really wanting out of my career. I think there's a lot of messaging that is go into business for yourself, and that may or may not be what's best. And so I think if you can do the work to understand what is it you're really looking for, how do you define an ideal working environment? Like, does it look like ownership? Does it look like, how does that look like? What feelings do you want to have when you're going into work? I think teasing some of those things out as you're doing wherever you're at in your life, whether it's working for somebody or you've just gone out on your own. And so I think being able to do that helps give you some sense of, like, a guide for what do you do when you need to start making those big decisions, and having those core values identified within yourself can help be that guide for you.
Couldn't have said it better, man. It's life is too short to not enjoy the journey, to be happy.
Get out and do it. Break some eggs.
It's up to you, though, to control your own destiny and to control how you feel. So, to the extent that, again, people out there, take Scott's advice, like, take the time to reflect internally, to figure out what is it that drives you? What do you want to wake up and be passionate about every day? Like, we can't just, think that we're waking up and going to a job. I tell people I hadn't worked a day in my life because I get up and I'm so excited to go into the office and be able to do what I do. And that's what it's about, is finding what are you passionate about And what do you want to do with your career? What do you want to do with your life? What is going to make you happy and energized to keep going, day after day, doing what you're doing? Because it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it's all about that mindset. Like, you got to enjoy what you're doing. So I think very solid advice, Scott.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to kind of just, share with us, your thinking. I think it's an awesome perspective that you've got here. One last question though. I'm curious, like, where do you want to see your business going? What's your 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Like, where do you want to see yourself? And, just so we can be, watching on the sidelines, seeing your journey.
Man, I think the tangibles are, we're building a healthy company, both internally and externally, where the people that are on our team are good at being proactive about solving problems ahead of time, so that when there are fires, we have the capacity to manage those. And then externally to our customers, that we are not taking a shotgun approach to our customers, that every project matters. And that could look like building some really great, really creative and interesting projects, and just getting to have the experience to work with, like, man, there's just so many interesting people out there. And just to get to go through, get to run that path and get the experience of being a part of all of these really cool projects. And it's kind of like 5, I guess, inevitable term, 5, 10 years, and all the years.
Man, well, look, I'm so excited to be one of your partners here and helping you, build this vision. And I appreciate everything you're doing, both to lead by example, but again, to be a great role model for others. The Job Tread Unplugged YouTube channel, just building this, this knowledge base and sharing it with the community. I mean, dude, it's it just shows, and is a testament to who you are, and I appreciate you more than you'll ever know for doing that. Look forward to being able to meet you in person here soon. And I thank you for coming on, Scott. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Eric, for having us. We've had a good time.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.